Welcome to Football Gameplan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and the 2017 college football season is rapidly approaching, and we are here to get you ready for the season as we preview the Big Sky Conference. Here's a look at what we have in store for you guys in this season's preview. We'll take a look at some of the incoming talent in our recruiting roundup. We'll hand out some superlatives, including our preseason all-conference team in our conference preseason awards segment. And we will also take an early look at some of the 2018 NFL draft prospects that you want to keep an eye on this season. But first, let's kick things off by taking you around the Big Sky Conference as we go into our 4-minute offense. There are 3 new head coaches this year in the Big Sky Conference. Former Colorado Buffalo and Montreal Alouette head coach Dan Hawkins takes over at UC Davis. Aaron Best takes over the controls of the Eastern Washington Eagles after being a player and a longtime assistant coach for the Eagles. And Idaho State made a late coaching switch as Rob Fennessy was named head coach in March after Mike Kramer retired after 6 seasons as the Bengals head coach. Each spot, in my opinion, got it right with the new hires and should start to see immediate returns on those choices. The Big Sky Conference is home to some of the most talented quarterbacks in the FCS. You have Eastern Washington's Gage Gubrud. Case Cookins is back at 100% for Northern Arizona. Keaton Studgwood is coming off an excellent season where he led the Fighting Hawks to the FCS playoffs. And Southern Utah's Patrick Tyler threw for over 2,200 yards and 23 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions. So it is no surprise that 4 teams from the Big Sky made the playoffs last year, with 2 to 3 more feeling like they were snubbed, and it's because of the stellar quarterback play, and the Big Sky Conference has that in spades. Speaking of the quarterback position, 2 rival programs in the Treasure State and Montana are both having one great generation coach up the next great generation of talented passers. Former Bobcat star Denarius McGee was named QB coach back in January, and he was one of the best quarterbacks in program history and honed his coaching craft in 2014 at Florida Atlantic and the last 2 years at NC State. The Montana Grizzlies quarterback coach is another former great in Andrew Sell, who's entering his 3rd season as the Grizzlies QB coach. Sell was a 4-year letterman for the Grizzlies, leading them to the 2009 FCS title game before going on to teach and coach at his high school alma mater, Billings West in Montana. Now he's looking to groom the next standout QB in the maroon and silver. Weber State head coach Jay Hill has done a remarkable job in turning around the Wildcats program. Hill was a longtime assistant coach for the Utah Utes before taking over the program in 2014. He went 2-10 that first year to 6-5 in 2015 to 7-5 last season, earning a berth into the FCS playoffs. And if history is of any indication, then this program will continue to make positive strides under Hill. In college football, you're only as good as your ability to recruit and develop the players that you bring into your program. And this past signing day, there was no shortage of future impact players added to the conference. So let's hit the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason. New head coach Dan Hawkins has a really good prospect in offensive lineman Will George. The 6'4", 280-pound tackle has above-average technique and footwork for the position. You rarely see a guy this technically sound coming out of high school along the offensive line. George has some serious talent. We know Cal Poly's option attack is very dangerous and tough to defend, and having a quarterback that opens up the passing game within that triple option attack makes it downright deadly. That's what the Mustangs are getting in quarterback Connor Bruce. He has the requisite athleticism to execute the option flawlessly, but has the passing skills to make defenses pay. Eastern Washington is looking to replenish their depth along the defensive line, and I like the awareness and athleticism of incoming recruit Mitchell Johnson. In my opinion, he can play either end spot and also outside linebacker. His versatility will be a big-time asset to the Eagles' defense. Aaron Manu plays the middle linebacker spot like you want it to be played. He's smart and situationally aggressive. He's a guy that does a great job in not only taking on blocks, but being able to quickly shed them and make the tackle as well. Quarterback coach Andrew Sell can't wait to work with incoming freshman Tanner Wilson. The 6'2", 190-pound QB plays with a certain level of calmness in the pocket. You never see him rattle back there. I think he's going to thrive in that Grizzlies wide-open passing attack. Tyrell Thomas is an explosive corner with ball skills. I could have stopped right there, but in all seriousness, what makes him a really good prospect is that he shows a lot of savvy for a prep player. Thomas is able to play any type of coverage necessary and also shows the ability to bait QBs into making bad decisions. Linebacker Noah Lawson is going to fit in perfectly on that Fighting Hawks defense. The 6'2", 235-pound backer does a great job in getting through the trash to the ball carrier. There's little to no wasted movements, and he's able to shrink space pretty quickly to deliver a blow. Sergio Hoffman is a solid pick and slide runner with really good acceleration, and with the way Northern Arizona wants to push the ball vertically down the field in the passing game, is going to leave some gaping lanes in the running game, and Hoffman is the type of back with the type of speed to make defenses pay. The Bears added some physical toughness up front with Robert Moss. I think with his raw power and quickness off the ball, he has a chance to see time as a freshman for head coach Ernest Collins Jr. Portland State's offensive line coach A.C. Patterson does a fantastic job in developing offensive linemen. He has a large ball of clay to work with here in Tyson Pauling coming into the program. Pauling is a finisher that I can envision finding a home inside as a guard for the Vikings. I'm excited to see Dewey Cotton hit the field for Sacramento State. He has a fast name, by the way, too. He has that type of explosiveness to break games open. He plays bigger than his size and could find an instant role as a returner in his first season with the Hornets. I think he's going to be a fantastic player. The Thunderbirds seem to find long, athletic corners that can find the ball. That's what they have in Michael Sims. The 6'2", 185-pound defensive back is very fluid in his transition and is also able to use his size as a skill as he actually plays like he's 6'2" and uses that length to disrupt passes. The Wildcats have an opening at the quarterback position, which means incoming freshman Caden Jenks has a chance to compete for that role. Jenks has pinpoint accuracy down the field and shows that he's capable of thriving inside or outside of the pocket. Keep an eye on him moving forward. I think he's going to be a really good player. This conference is filled with talented players across the board, and what better way to illustrate that than to unveil our 2017 preseason all-conference team. On the offensive preseason all-conference team, quarterback Gage Gubru gets the nod after coming off a remarkable sophomore season that saw him throw for over 5,100 yards and 48 touchdowns, completing 67% of his passes in the process. The backfield boasts two Fighting Hawks in John Santiago and Brady Oliveira. The duo combined for over 1,800 yards and 17 touchdowns. Both backs average well over 5 yards a carry as well. Very diverse group of offensive linemen led by Tyler Shank of Northern Arizona, who is one of 3 Lumberjacks on this list. Another one is wide receiver Emmanuel Butler. The 6'3", 220-pound Butler hauled in 69 receptions for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. He hopes to put the final touches on an excellent career with the Lumberjacks, as the senior wideout has totaled 146 receptions and 26 touchdowns in his collegiate career. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, and as you can see, I couldn't decide which 3 linebackers to put on this list, so I included them all. We talked earlier about how this conference is known as a haven for stellar quarterback play, but the same can be said for the linebackers. Defensive back Taron Johnson of Weber State has garnered a lot of attention from pro scouts because of his play. Speaking of garnering a lot of attention from pro scouts, Cole Reyes of North Dakota has a lot of people in the scouting community buzzing. Reyes is a defensive leader for the Fighting Hawks and is the type of player that's capable of making a play in any capacity. He finished 2016 second on the team in tackles with 70 and picked off 3 passes, bringing 1 back to the house. Taking a look at the specialists on our preseason All-Big Sky team, returner Hakeem Deggs of Northern Colorado makes his second consecutive appearance on our preseason all-conference team. The 5'7", 157-pound speedster finished last season as the Bears' leader in kickoff return yards with 563 with a long of 45. Let's take a look at the Big Sky Conference's best buy position in our conference superlative segment. Starting with the quarterbacks, you have to give the nod to the Eastern Washington Eagles. Gage Gubru leads the pack as the best passer in the Big Sky, but the Eagles also boast an impressive number 2 in Eric Barrier, who was voted Scout Team Player of the Year last season as a redshirt. He could start for many teams in the FCS. The best group of running backs for the second year in a row goes to the North Dakota Fighting Hawks, who can't get any better than the dynamic duo of John Santiago and Brady Oliveira. It's not the yardage that was the most impressive, it was the fact that teams knew that they were running the football and they still couldn't stop them. Northern Arizona is home to the best receiving core in the Big Sky. This is a deep and talented group of playmakers. Emmanuel Butler and Elijah Marks combined for over 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns. Junior William Moorhead finished third on the team in receiving yards with 456 and 5 touchdowns. The 6-foot, 180-pound speedster from Lakewood, California, was also stellar as a punt returner, averaging an impressive 11.2 yards per return. The reason why the Fighting Hawks were able to run the football so well is due to the fact that they also have the best offensive line in the conference. 4 out of the 5 starters returned from a team that paved the way for one of the best rushing attacks in the FCS. The Fighting Hawks are led by 2 standout seniors up front in AJ Stockwell and Dan Bell. The Montana Grizzlies will be very strong in the trenches this season. Defensive linemen Tucker Sky, Brant Davison, and Jesse Sims form a good foundation up front, and I like the potential of David Shaw, the incoming Maryland Terrapin transfer. Shaw looks to be a major difference maker along the line of scrimmage, as does fellow transfer defensive end Chris Barbaroso. We have a tie for the best linebacking core between Idaho State and Weber State. The Bengals have their standout duo back in Mario Jenkins and Joe Martin back in the fold. They combined for 181 tackles, 3 sacks, and 13.5 TFLs on the season. Weber State gets a big boost with the return of their standout backer Emmett Teller from injury in 2015. He finished with 72 tackles and 7.5 TFLs. He joins Landon Stice and LeGrand Toya to give the Wildcats a strong trio that's reminiscent of their dominant 2015 core, where they led the Big Sky in total defense. The Fighting Hawks stand alone in the conference when it comes to the best secondary. Both Cole Reyes and Deion Harris are the premier standouts, but you can't forget about Torrey Hunt, who picked off 3 passes as a freshman. North Dakota also gets back Tyus Carter, who started the first 3 games of the season before going down with a shoulder injury that knocked him out the rest of the 2016 campaign. It should be the no-fly zone once again this season on the back end. I really like what the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks bring to the table in the special teams department. Kicker Griffin Roller connected on 13 of 16 of his field goal attempts and went 44 of 45 on his extra points. In the return game, wide receivers Elijah Marks and William Moorhead led the way in both kickoff return yardage and punt return yardage respectively. And sophomore running back Joe Logan was also stellar on kickoff returns as well last season. In the 2017 NFL Draft this past April, we saw 15 prospects from the FCS get their names called, and many more have signed free agent deals in the NFL and also in the CFL. And this is shaping up to be yet another strong class in the football championship subdivision. And here are a few guys that you want to keep an eye on for the 2018 NFL Draft. Again, this is a very early list of prospects, as there are about 20 guys from the Big Sky that's on my preseason watch list. Mario Jenkins and Emmett Teller are the type of linebackers that would be ideal weak side backers in the NFL. Both guys have the speed to get from point A to point B in an instant. Eastern Washington defensive lineman J.T. Tooley was very impressive last season from a technical standpoint, doing his job up front on both ends of defense. Weber State tight end Andrew Vollard fits the mold of what the league wants at that position. He's a threat as a receiver that can be moved around the formation. At 6'5", 245, Vollard has very good athleticism and the run after the catch skills that scouts covet. We've seen in the last 3 seasons some great tight end prospects come out the FCS, from James O'Shaughnessy, Seth DeValve, Eric Saulbert, and this year Dallas Goddard of South Dakota State and Ross Dwelly of San Diego are also premier talents. You can put Vollard's name on that list. He definitely belongs there as well. Deion Harris out of North Dakota is an excellent cornerback prospect. He's a fluid 6'2" corner that has tremendous ball skills. Last season, Harris picked off 5 passes, bringing back 3 for touchdowns, and in addition to his interception numbers, he also broke up 14 additional passes. He has the skills and the athleticism that's reminiscent of a former FCS standout in Dominic Rogers-Cromartie. We've now reached the part of the show where it's time to go more in depth on what we can expect within the conference in 2017. Who says you can't go back home again? Aggie alum Dan Hawkins is a new head coach, and he wants to hit the ground running in leading this once proud program back to prominence. In order to do so, the Aggies have to get much better defensively. They had issues in stopping the run last season and also giving up the big play. The best way to help out a defense is to stay on the field offensively. So look for Hawkins in his first year to lean on his ground game and try to play complementary football. Expect to see a ton of freshmen getting playing time, as well as they try to build that foundation for the future. The Sacramento State Hornets hope that going with the youth movement in 2016 will yield better results this year. They really have to get better defensively after allowing 40 points a game last season. On offense, they should be able to have some success in the passing game, but ideally, they want to be balanced on offense. Losing their top 2 rushers will make that a bit difficult early on as they break in some new starters in the backfield. I feel like the Hornets are still a year away from making some serious noise in the Big Sky. Northern Colorado has gotten better each year over the last 3 seasons. The hope is that they can continue that trend in 2017. For that to happen defensively, they will have to overcome some significant losses. That's why you saw head coach Ernest Collins Jr. bring in some transfers to be a stopgap solution for the Bears. They should be solid on offense, and their special teams have been consistently tough. Whether or not they can make it 4 straight seasons of success will ultimately come down to if they can stop the run. They gave up 5 yards a carry and nearly 240 yards a game on the ground. They also have to get better in the red zone defensively. The Cal Poly Mustangs are fresh off of an FCS playoff appearance last season. For them to make a return trip, they have to solve the question mark at quarterback as stellar QB Daniel Graves has graduated. Now, continuity is king for the triple option to be successful, so while they'll still be solid, there will be a slight adjustment period as they're breaking in a new QB. Also, defensively, they have to get better. I don't necessarily blame the secondary for their struggles last season. The Mustangs have to find a way to get better at rushing the passer. If the front end can help out the back end, then Cal Poly will be formidable once again. They open up at home this year with a tough one against Colgate. Keep an eye on the Idaho State Bengals this year. Last season they finished 2-9, but I think this season they'll be much better defensively, which should yield better results. They struggled mightily against the run, and that was a major focal point of new head coach Rob Fennessy in the spring. On the offensive side, there are some slight questions along the offensive line, but the Bengals do return a solid quarterback in Tanner Gueller, who loses his top wide receivers but still has good rapport with the guys that will end up replacing those 2 guys in the starting lineup. This year's success, however, will ultimately come down to how much improvement was made defensively, both on third downs and also inside the red zone. The Portland State Vikings seem to be flying under the radar nationally, but I think we can see this team push for a playoff berth this season. Where the Vikings win and where they will win again this season is in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They're a well-coached team on both lines of scrimmage. They'll be breaking in a new quarterback and starting running back this year, which will take some time to gel. Last year's defensive numbers were tough to look at, but the silver lining was that they suffered a lot of injuries, played some younger guys, and fast forward to this season, they are now healthier, more experienced as a result. How much better we'll see, but the Vikings open up against BYU, Oregon State, and Montana in the first 3 of 4 games in September. A lot of the questions about the 2017 Northern Arizona Lumberjacks are on the defensive side of the ball. This is a group that returns 3 starters and will be looking to be not a liability to overall team success. What we do know about the Lumberjacks is that they have one of the best quarterbacks in the FCS in Case Cookus, the best receiving core in the Big Sky, and they can put up points against any defense that they face. Will they be giving up as much as they put up? Well, we'll see. In order for that not to happen, the pass rush has to get significantly better in 2017, and they'll get tested pretty early up front as they open up with Arizona, Western Illinois, and Cal Poly. Montana State will be much improved this season. I like what I saw last year from sophomore quarterback Chris Murray. He's your quintessential dual threat player. The hope is that new quarterback coach Danaris McGee can coach him up on how to become a much more efficient passer this year. Defensively, the Bobcats returned 8 starters from a group that was excellent on third downs and did a good job turning the ball over. The Bobcats are also strong on special teams, and you only have to win 2 out of the 3 aspects of a game to be victorious. Now, with the improved efficiency from the quarterback position, Montana State has the potential to win all 3. They lost a lot of winnable games last year, including some big ones against Idaho and North Dakota. And I think the Bobcats can pull off an upset or 2 within the first month of the season, giving this young football team some confidence the rest of the way. Southern Utah will be a strong defensive football team in 2017. The Thunderbirds returned 9 starters on a defense that did an excellent job in turning the ball over. They were equally as impressive inside the red zone. And where you have some questions is on the the offensive side, as they replace a lot of production in the backfield and also on the perimeter. Now, the good news is that they were stable at quarterback and also along the offensive line. And we'll see if head coach Demario Warren can get his offense to play complementary football early on until they find their footing. Eastern Washington is entering a new era, so to speak. The Eagles have a new head coach in Aaron Best, and for the first time in 5 years, they'll be without the services of Cooper Kupp. As a matter of fact, they lose their top 3 wideouts and some key players defensively. The reason why all is not lost for Eastern is due to continuity. That's why Coach Best was, to be honest, the best choice for the job. The Eagles are still talented enough to be considered one of the top 15 teams in the FCS. Now, the question is if they can overcome some of those losses early in the season, as they have arguably the toughest schedule in the conference. And we'll learn a lot about this year's Eagles squad on September the 9th as they play host to North Dakota State. In my opinion, the Montana Grizzlies are being slept on by many this offseason. I wouldn't put much stock into their late season collapse last year. Let's look at it this way. The Grizz are strong on the offensive line and at wide receiver. That alone, plus the services of junior running back Jeremy Calhoun, who averaged 7.2 yards a carry, will make the transition to a new quarterback very easy. And with that area of the team potentially solved, the focus now shifts to what may be the best defensive front seven in the Big Sky Conference. The schedule sets up nice for the Grizz to get off to a great start until a key Big Sky showdown on September 23rd at home against Eastern Washington. Look for Montana to make the playoffs this season. Balance is the name of the game when you're talking about the Weber State Wildcats. Head coach Jay Hill has done amazing things with this Wildcat program. This year, Weber State looks to be just as strong of a team in the FCS. The only major concern would be on the offensive line that has to replace some starters up front. Despite losing quarterback Jadron Clark, I think they'll be just fine with Stephen Cantwell this season as the signal caller. The backfield and receiving core are still intact, and they will be strong once again defensively. Being one of the most balanced teams in the conference puts them in position to play and ultimately win any type of game on any given Saturday. North Dakota is going to be a fun team to watch this year. The Fighting Hawks play a brand of football that not many are prepared to play in this day and age of college football. They beat you up in the trenches and they wear you down. This season, what has to be different is that they have to do a better job situationally. I'm talking about 4-minute offense, backed up situations, and inside the red zone is where you want to see the Fighting Hawks get better in 2017. They had a chance to put Richmond away in the playoffs, but they let them back in the game and they ultimately lost it. Look for the progression to be made in the passing game, which will essentially make the run game even better. Defensively, the Fighting Hawks should still be a stingy bunch, and I don't see that changing this season. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts, and if you want to check out our other FCS season previews, visit our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Also on iTunes, subscribe to Football Game Plan Podcast, where you can find our FCS Opening Drive podcast.